Hey kids, welcome in to another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. We are at Quaker Steak and Lube, and we are goonless here in the beloved State College, PA. The dear Goon getting a little R&R time. And
do you know where he is?
Chris Buganani is kindly filling in. Yes, heading to, I don't know if he's there yet, but he's heading to Maine.
To Kenny Bunkport.
Is that okay?
He's one of the Bushes.
Nice.
Can you believe that?
I like it. Styling and profiling.
Mm-hmm.
Planning on eating as much lobster as he can possibly consume.
What do you say, 26 pounds?
Yeah, that was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I suspect if anybody could do it, the dear Goon, I
sure.
could set a goal like that. I would fall short. As much as I love lobster and as much as I tell myself I'm going to eat nonstop, there are limits to yours truly. I suppose there are some limits at some point for the dear Goon when it comes to food and beverage, but it's a pretty high ceiling for that guy compared to most of us.
Over multiple days, I think he's got it.
I kind of do too.
It's his personal tribute to Saquon Barkley.
Yes,
26
indeed.
pounds of lobster. Lots
that we can get into today. Penn State, of course, in the bye week. And I do think it's a well-timed bye week, and I like the fact that they have Illinois of all of the games coming off of the bye week, because I do think it gives you a chance if some things are off a bit with timing and everything to get your feet under you and get back on solid footing heading into what is going to be, I think for fans and team alike, just a fascinating and fun stretch run. I think this team will embrace it. I don't think they look at it as pressure filled. I've seen some things, there's no room for margin for error, no room for mistakes. Now it's like, yeah, there is. It's college athletics, guys. It's like, I get it. I mean, I understand what they're saying in terms of trying to win a national title. And yes, they can't lose. But yeah, you can make mistakes. They can turn the ball over a couple of times against Ohio State and still win. And they have to have Sean Clifford back. No, they don't, actually. It would help. It would go a long way toward helping the cause. But man, the difference between being thrown in to a game at Iowa when you're not expected, and again, you can prepare as much as you can in practice and try to get your mindset. It is just different, okay? It's just different when you're out there in the actual circumstance. And again, I'm one of those that still doesn't think Roberson played that badly. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he played lights out, but I don't think he played as badly as the statistics would indicate, because I think there were some things that his teammates didn't do to help him out. And I think you could argue that, on the coaches front, I'm not sure there was much more the coaches could have done. I didn't have nearly as big of a problem with the coaches in that game as many did. I think circumstances prevented them from running the offense that they would have liked to have run with Roberson there. And I think you saw some glimpses of it, and I think the glimpses we saw were pretty darn promising moving forward. But that's, again, one person's take.
That is some of the rosiest optimism I have heard. And I actually feel pretty good about this team. But look, let me just say, I will recommend to the listeners / viewers, it is not for the faint-hearted, but well worth your time. Go to forthebloggy.com or go to social media, Facebook, YouTube. Look for the Bloggy, great blog website, follows Penn State football. They produce these film breakdowns with a high school football coach down in Texas, Pennsylvania native by the name of Nick Caduti. They've been doing this for a year and a half. Great film
for the Bloggy. I'm going to have to check this out. I'm completely unfamiliar with it.
You should check it out. You'd love the film. They're really good. Like, if you're into the actual X's and O's stuff, he does a great breakdown, at least one every week. And it is not for the faint of heart this week. He breaks down the performance by Taquan Roberson. It was not good. I mean, he missed a lot of easy throws. He missed a lot of open receivers. So, look, there's blame to go around, and I think it is moderate blame all around. And one group of players that deserve some scrutiny are our running backs.
For sure.
I feel like our offensive linemen have actually been taking it on the chin a little bit over the last several weeks for the struggles of Penn State's run game. Again, if you go back and you look at the film, like, yeah, there are missed blocks, and certainly, like, everyone on the O-line has a couple of snaps they would probably like back, but there are also a lot of holes that open up, and for whatever reason, our collection of backs, like, none of these guys are just not hitting the holes.
Yeah, there were a couple of opportunities, and I will check this out because I am fascinated by that stuff. And I'm not one of those guys. Primarily, and it could change if some circumstances change, because I do like going back and watching, the tapes and all of that stuff. I mean, I don't have time with my life right now. It's not happening, even if I had the desire to, and I would have liked to have gone back and watched several parts of this Iowa game for several reasons. And so, yeah, again, I'm not sitting here telling you Roberson played lights out, but what I will tell you is when you are being thrust into that situation and playing however he played, it is different when you have, and again, I don't know, don't read anything into this. I have no idea the status of Clifford. I saw his comments that, he's working to get back as soon as possible. And, hopefully, again, there's no question, Penn State's chances are astronomically better at Ohio State than if with Clifford in there than not. But I'm just telling you, I've watched A&M's offense, and I'm not predicating everything here on Texas A&M. I'm telling you, things click differently for different guys at different times. I've had this discussion with so many people over the years with wrestling, and it's like, well, where did this guy come from, or where did that guy come from? I'm like, he busted his ass for 3 years is where that guy came from. Not everybody comes out of high school as ready and surefire, let's go get this done as, a David Taylor or a Bo Nickel in wrestling, or, Saquon Barkley or whoever in football. And even with those guys, right, there's still that transition. And I'm just telling you, I think Roberson can, and if it's Roberson, we're presuming that Roberson will be the guy moving forward until Clifford gets back. But whatever, I am telling you, with 2 weeks, if he is the guy against Illinois, 2 weeks to get ready. Now you're at home. You get to work knowing that, and everybody else knows, okay, let's get the timing and the cadence and everything else so we're all on the same page. I just think it's a lot different. And even if he is, worst case scenario for Penn State, you go to Columbus and Clifford's not ready and Roberson's your guy. I'm just telling you, I would be very slow to say, well, no, the Roberson you saw at Iowa, that's what you get, and so you're screwed at Ohio State. I think they will do some things. I think Roberson will do things differently. I think the coaches will do some things differently. And I think that the strategy going into that game is a little different with the defense you have. And by the way, I think every bit as significant of an injury as Clifford is Mustafa. I don't know that you can appreciate just how significant the play of PJ Mustafa has been to that defense. And am I going to tell you that this defense is going to collapse now? No. And I think, they've got some very good players and they do have some depth there. But I'm telling you, PJ Mustafa is a really special dude with what he brings to the table. And that's a guy that came in with really high expectations. And it took a little while, to my point earlier. He wasn't dominating right out of high school. And some were saying that they were expecting that from him.
Sure.
But, man, he was dominating this year, guys. I mean, I'm just telling you, that dude was playing lights out, grade A football very consistently.
He was the first guy since Larry Johnson Sr. has left the staff who reminded me of that long run of NFL caliber interior linemen that we produced while LJ was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
which is not a knock on some of the other guys Coach Chaos had.
Mustipher's a different,
different
caliber dude.
He reminds you of Devin Still or Daquan Jones, those type of guys.
No, he just he was a force that had to be reckoned with. I mean, the opposing offensive line had to account for him every week, and losing him for the season is significant. Again, not a guarantee that this defense falls apart or even drops off, but they're going to have to play a little differently to play the caliber of defense that they have to this point without Mustipher in there.
Another reason why I think the bye week is well timed for Penn State, because they are going to need to get that figured out. I think that having Derek Tangelo to provide some stability at one of the two starting positions is great.
Yep.
I also do think, and I mean, James Franklin has said this, I think he mentioned it last night, that Elise and Keziah Izzard, the two young guys who have been working their way more and more into that rotation. You want to talk about the light switch getting flipped? It looks like something has clicked for those two guys, but now everybody gets bumped up one spot in the rotation. And I think it's going to be really important for Penn State so as to not overwork Tangelo, that they find a fourth guy in that rotation. Is it going to be a veteran like Fred Hansard? Are they maybe going to move a guy who's a tweener like Amin Vanover inside, then give him a couple weeks taking snaps at the interior? Or one of those other young guys going to step up? They've got to figure out what's the four-man rotation at defensive tackle. Yeah,
and they have to and this is one of those situations, and Franklin would probably argue that that's what they'll do all the time, every year. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case, but I think you just have to figure out what you truly believe / know as a coaching staff. These are the best four, and run with it. And if it's somebody that you were hoping to keep that red shirt year, again, just because of the circumstance, I do think I'm still very much all in that this team has a real shot to get to the playoffs, and I think even do some damage there. I just think this year,
I hate to say it, I hate myself
is
for
a
saying
year where you have
to
play it out. So. And again, maybe you'd argue that James Franklin's going to tell you that that's what we would do no matter what, and maybe they would. But I think if you're sitting at, I don't know that you necessarily, at least from my viewpoint, I don't know that you need to have that mindset if you're 3-3 right now. I think you can. All right, let's get. We don't want to have a huge drop off, but man, if we think this guy's going to be a 4-year starter down the road, and we think we can get by pretty well with this other guy, then I think you do it in that circumstance. I think here it's just, man, do we think this guy's a little bit better? Let's play him. Because I just think, again, that margin for error is not significant across the board, regardless, in college football right now. Again, there's just not a lot of separation, I think, between a bunch of the upper echelon teams, and as I've been saying, I really think there's at least 8 to 12 teams legitimately, as we stand here today, 8 to 12 teams that are legitimately in the hunt for a playoff berth here this season. And obviously not all of those teams. I mean, the Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, that's going to play itself out.
Sure.
At most, two of those teams, and more likely one, is what's going to be standing at the end of the day. So obviously, a couple of those teams are going to play themselves out of contention, as will, again, some other teams. But I think there are. It's probably closer to 12 teams right now that are truly, legitimately in the hunt, and if they can play out the rest of the schedule accordingly, will find themselves in that college football playoff discussion, if not the playoffs themselves here at the end of the season. And I think that's great for college football. I really do. And I'm not one of those that holds a grudge against the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world, because why would you not hold on to those spots if you can? But I do think it's good for the sport to see different teams in the mix, and I think it bodes well for the future of the sport as well, getting different teams and fan bases believing that their team is in there for longer periods of time. I think that's it's why in professional sports so many of the leagues expand the playoffs. You want the fan bases to be excited, right? And even if the teams don't make the playoffs, everybody in baseball outside of Pittsburgh and Arizona could believe that if things break right in the second half of the season, my gosh, even our team could be in the playoffs with the wild card situation now. Sure. And there's probably a bunch of hockey teams that I think most of them realize now they'll be playing for runner-up status to the Pittsburgh Penguins, but probably a bunch of hockey teams that think they can do good things. It was fun. I get it. It's one game, and I'm not getting overly carried away. But I'm just telling you, after suffering through the baseball season I have and the start to the football season on the professional sports side, watching that game Tuesday night did my sports soul a lot of good. It was a lot of fun as a Penguins fan without Evgeny Malkin, without Sidney Crosby, to watch that team go in to Tampa. I don't think it necessarily portends a darn thing for either the Penguins or the Lightning this season, but it was a fun night of hockey for yours truly as a Penguins fan. And it was just a nice little respite from what has been a tough sports year on the professional front for yours truly.
Yeah, I was very torn because as much as I don't like y'all, I really enjoyed seeing Tampa get their brains beaten in. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So it was, I found a pretty nice silver lining in that result.
And the big one tonight in the NFL for your Eagles against the Buccaneers. And I do think this is an intriguing matchup for a bunch of different reasons. It actually
is, yeah.
And I will say, these short weeks, I think, are great equalizers. I really do, in terms of trying to figure out what to expect. The Thursday night games, to me, present more of a challenge in terms of, and with my stellar track record otherwise of predicting games, you can see how this greatly affects my confidence. I do think the Thursday night games are just so much more difficult than even the normal Sunday or Monday night games to predict, because again, it doesn't have to be an injury, right? If a guy gets a little more banged up on a Sunday than normal, they may not be ready to go on that Thursday night. Not the way you want to be ready to go in terms of being able to perform at your optimum. And
I mean, with all due respect to my guy Nick Foles, and that's a lot of respect too. Tom Brady lost to the Bears on Thursday night last year, and that team stunk.
Yeah.
They were terrible.
Yeah, that was before Justin Fields got there, in case you weren't remembering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, look, Nick Foles beats Tom Brady. That's what he does. But their offensive line was terrible. Yeah. Their defense was playing bad. Their receivers were bad. Their running game stunk. But they just caught Tampa on that short week. And he didn't have his best game.
And I will say,
there you had it.
Tampa's just an interesting team. And I think we talked about this even going into the season, Goon and I, a little bit, because everybody, including Tom Brady, right, was like, well, we're going to be better this year than we were last year because we have everybody coming back. And
doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. Every year, and it's just hard to explain. And I don't know that there is necessarily an explanation. And I use this example too often, and I concede that, but I'm just telling you, as a Penn State fan, for those that can remember, the 1979 Penn State team was absolutely loaded. I mean, almost all of the key players from that 78 team that lost in the controversial goal line stand by Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
So he was in on third down.
Yep. There's zero question about that. I mean, there's just none. Anyways, but that team, again, was loaded with talent and, again, had the experience of that 78 season, and everybody I mean, I don't think there was a publication in America that didn't have Penn State at the very least top 5.
Yeah.
Most had Penn State 1 or 2, like pretty much everybody. And again, the expectations here were sky high. And of course, Millen and Paterno had the go around over the summer, and that probably was a precursor to some of how that season would play out, but it didn't go well for the Nittany Lions. And again, it doesn't even need to be that it's just different. Every year is different, and it could be complacency setting in with some players. It could be, again, you can have a group that gets tired of itself, right? Like best buddy one year, and now I'm seeing more of your personality, and I don't like certain parts of it. And it's just all kinds of, it doesn't even have to be any of that. It can just be, it's just, we're not clicking this year the same way we did a year ago. And
the thing is, look, I respect Tampa Bay, man. They are a well put together football team, and you're nuts if you don't respect Tom Brady at this point.
Wow.
But they're 4-1 and have already looked a little bit mortal at points this year. And I always go back to when the lights were brightest in the Super Bowl, they delivered and they played a hell of a game.
Yep.
But they were also super lucky, Ironhead, to escape the NFC Championship game where Tom Brady played a terrible game. That is 2 or 3 picks in that game. Am I right?
Oh yeah, and that is another component to this.
It's not like they
in
were
the NFL, especially
juggernaut like the year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
Right,
no one was stopping them. Right.
And the thing is, injuries do play a role. I mean, luck is always a factor in who wins any of these professional sports championships, right? You get a starting pitcher. I don't care how good of a baseball team is. If one of your star starting pitchers goes down, it becomes really, really difficult to maintain. Not impossible, but to get to where you want to be. If you're a football team and you suffer a bunch of injuries on the offensive line, or if your star quarterback goes down, I mean, there's a lot of things to play into it, but injuries are always part of it. And it's when those injuries occur too, right? Like, if your linebacker goes down and misses a couple of weeks in September, that's a bummer, and it can affect you. I mean, a loss there, I get it, counts the same as a loss in December. But in terms of building that momentum and getting that good feeling, if you're healthy, relatively healthy, and you're winning three or four straight going into the playoffs, that's different than, even being 14-2 if 2 of those 3 losses were in the last 3 weeks. And now you got, your starting quarterback, is nursing a shoulder injury, and a couple other guys are out or banged up. It's just, again, it's so many different factors that play into it. And I'm curious to see how this Eagles offense looks tonight over the course of 4 quarters against that Tampa defense.
So a couple of challenges for Philadelphia, which I'm assuming maybe you're not tracking this closely. They have had massive injury problems along the offensive line. Again, I mean, that has been a recurring theme for Philly. And the one constant through all of it is Jason Kelce. I mean, that guy is just like a tank at center, but and then they also have, it's very kind of an odd, ambiguous situation where their right tackle, Pro Bowl right tackle Lane Johnson, has been out because he is dealing with a quote unquote personal matter.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going on there, but we know he's not going to be available. The one bright spot, I guess, if you look at it, is that a few years ago, Philly drafted, actually moved up to draft a left tackle from Washington State named Andre Dillard. And so he was to be the left tackle of the future to replace the venerable Jason Peters. And then he got hurt, and he struggled with injury his first few years, and then was on and off of the trade block over the last 18 months. And by all accounts, his camp was terrible. His preseason was bad. He looked like a completely lost, washed commodity. I guess to go back to your point about you never know when the light is going to come on for one of these guys. And then Jordan Mailata, the guy who won the left tackle job pretty handily, he gets a little dinged up, and Dillard has to step in and play, and has actually been doing relatively well. Like for the first time in his career, he's gotten meaningful snaps since some stretches late in his rookie season. And he's looked like at least a competent, serviceable left tackle, which has allowed the Eagles to move Mailata, now that he's healthy again, into the right tackle spot. He's not as comfortable there as he is at left, but you've got Dillard and Mailata kind of like bookending and at least giving you a serviceable combo. So it is going to be interesting to see those guys coming off a game that Philly didn't play well, but they won against a pretty stout Carolina defense. Yeah. Now, again, playing a pretty tough defense in the Bucs, although one of their 2-star linebackers is out. I think it is. Is it Murray that's not playing? I think, but anyway, you're waiting for Miles Sanders to get some run against the defense with one of their star linebackers out. Same thing. Dallas Goedert, one of our 2 playmaking tight ends, is not going to play. He's on the COVID list, and there's still a lot of speculation that Philly is trying to pump up Zach Ertz's trade value before we get to the deadline. He's going to get a chance to eat tonight. So how well do you protect Jalen Hurts? Can you get the run game going? Can you get Zach Ertz into some mismatch situations, and you can protect Hurts well enough that he can get him the ball? I wouldn't be shocked if Philly gets blown out. I also wouldn't be shocked if it's a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, because they've got some playmakers on offense, they've got some playmakers on defense, and it's really just from week to week about whether or not the good version of enough of those players show up at the same time, and the coaches put them in a position to succeed. And do you get the best version of the Buccaneers, or do you get the version that almost lost to Green Bay in the NFC Championship game and lost to the Bears last season? Who knows?
Yeah,
enough to keep me interested to watch the game. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'll be flipping back and forth between that and the Dodgers Giants, and I'm fascinated by that series and the discussion on should baseball reseed after that wild card round, and
what do you think about that?
I'm probably in favor of it. It makes sense to me to do that. And yes, this would be better as a 7-game series and in the championship for sure. But I also don't know that you can. So I mean, the short answer is yes. I'd be in favor of it. I think it makes sense, and I think it gives you the potential to get the best possible matchup that you can in the championship series.
Especially because it's such a long season. You feel like there does need to be a reward for being able to get that, and that's
the biggest thing. That being said, because everybody is that I'm watching today talk about this or discuss it over the last couple of days is presuming that the championship series would have been the Dodgers and Giants, and I understand why you're leaning toward believing that would be the case, but there is no guarantee, and that is the other side of this is the fact that is such a great rivalry between those two organizations. I mean, historically and recently, the fact that you now definitely get to see it, like there is some upside to having it now, because there was the possibility, if this is what you think is the end all be all for viewing in the National League, there was a chance that if you had reseeded, that you never would have seen these two play each other. Like that is a possibility. And again, I still would be in favor of it, because I do think you want to reward, yes, the wins over the course of the season, and I think there needs to be a little bit of recognition that if you have two dominant teams. And this does seem to happen as often as not, if not more often than not, in Major League Baseball, where, any given year, there's just two, or like in the American League East this year, three really, really good teams. But it seems like a lot of years, there are just like the two best teams in a league are coming from the same division. And it does seem like you ought to go ahead and reward the team if they that fall short of winning the division, if they were that much better than everybody else.
Right.
Once they win the wild card game, go ahead and give them the opportunity to reap the rewards rather than get kind of double punished for just being in the wrong division. Like that seems, and to some degree, I mean, there's no way around that. It's the same thing that happens in, any sport. There's always divisions in any given year, conferences that are better than others. And it's why, the Big Ten East this year, circling back now to college football. I mean, the Big Ten East right now, right? All due respect to the SEC, West, and I mean, you have four teams in that division right now in the top 10, right? And only Ohio State has a loss. Three of them are undefeated.
Do you know this is the first time in history, which is kind of hard to believe when you think about how long the Big Ten has been around. This is the first time in history that half the AP top 10 has been Big Ten teams.
Yeah, which is, in some ways, it's not that surprising to me, just because of, again, usually by the time,
actually,
first of all, there's a lack of respect
you're right. Yes,
for the Big Ten one.
Yeah, you're right.
And usually, right,
especially after the two teams we don't even need to mention.
Yeah, right? and the way you were able to do it, right? Four of those teams had to be undefeated.
Yeah, right.
And if any of those teams had a loss, well, before Iowa and Penn State played each other, I'm talking about, but four of those teams were undefeated. And, I would say if Penn State wasn't playing at Iowa and, lost as close as it did, probably Penn State's getting bumped out of the top 10.
That's probably true. And because
but it
Alabama lost. And all
that, bunch of circumstances. But it does speak volumes about the conference as a whole. But the Big Ten East, again, to this point, has just been truly remarkable.
Look, and I've gotten to watch all those Big Ten East teams, and I don't think any of them are frauds.
No, I don't. We were talking about, I think, earlier.
For sure, like top. Do you feel comfortable saying that all four of those Big Ten East teams are like legitimately, like their floors, like they're like top 15 to top 17?
I think they're all definitively top 20 teams. I think they're that caliber. Now, exactly where in the top 20, I'm not sure. Still with at least a couple of them, and maybe all of them, to be honest, till we see how this thing plays out. And that is, to me, the going to be the fascinating thing to watch here for the remainder of the season. Is there are some upsets coming, and forgetting about the Big Ten East for a second, whether it's Cincinnati stubbing its toe somewhere along the way, or Alabama, which would be a shocker to me. Again, Auburn is kind of the only team I see on Bama's schedule that would be even slightly concerning.
Yeah.
Could Georgia lose somewhere? I mean, it's possible. And there are some teams that, like Kentucky is still undefeated, and in the SEC. I mean, that team controls its own destiny. If Kentucky wins out, right, it's going to have to beat. So it'll find itself in the college football playoffs.
Incredibly impressive.
I think the chances of that are right around zero. But it is going to be fun to see. Like I'm curious to see how Kentucky does this weekend. I want to see kind of where. I think it's a big measuring stick game, and I'm not expecting Kentucky to be able to match up for four quarters with Georgia. But I wasn't expecting Texas A&M to have a shot against Alabama either. So that's, again, part of the fun of college football.
What I find interesting about Georgia's season this year is that other than Iowa fans after beating Penn State at home, there are going to be no angrier fans in college football than Georgia if they do not go all the way this year.
Yeah.
Because, in general, that's a fan base that is very passionate, has had to live with watching Alabama rise to this like dynastic level over the last 10 plus years. And Georgia views themselves as belonging on that same level. And to Kirby Smart's everlasting credit and to the everlasting frustration of his fans, they've built that program into a playoff contender twice. Like they built it up into a team that was a field goal away from a national title, took a couple of steps back, and now here they are back again with what I think does look like the best team in college football. I thought they were coming in. I thought they were maybe like a half a tick above Alabama, having to replace all those players from last year's team. If they don't do it this year, like paradoxically, they're going to be in one of the most enviable positions in all of college football, and their fans are going to have their hair on fire. It's nuts. The playoff era is crazy.
It is, and again, it's part of the fun. I think of college football is watching how all of these things play out.
And into town comes Will Levis with his crazy like mayo in the coffee, all the other psychopathic things he does. And then, Kentucky football, they are playing with the definition of house money. They're a basketball school in the SEC. What do they care?
Absolutely,
nothing to lose.
Nope,
not a damn thing.
And I think that they're. And listen, that is part of the because I love looking at the psychology of this stuff, and I love going back and watching like the thing on Penn State and that 2012 team, or the Jordan stuff. Like I love going back and looking at even for not special teams. Like it's just fun to see. Well, this is where this thing went off the rails for this team. It's always fun to be able to just kind of look back and these were the problems that clearly existed that we didn't see coming. Or man, if this play doesn't happen, we don't know if everything else plays out the way it did. You go back to, Tom Brady getting his opportunity with the Patriots with the Bledsoe injury. If that doesn't occur, who knows how long it is until Brady even gets that opportunity. Again, there's things play out the way they play out, but it's one little change here or there can throw everything one way or the other. Could bring something together special that nobody saw coming. And I think with Kentucky, part of what has happened down there is that they are genuinely just loving playing the game. And I think you're right. They certainly aren't coming in with any pressure. Georgia, I think those players are feeling some pressure, right? Like they are feeling it this season. They're responding very well. I'm not sitting here telling you that they're uptight before every game, but I'm telling you, they understand the weight and the gravity of the situation. Yeah. And I think Kentucky probably conversely understands that, there's nobody expecting them to go win the SEC. There's nobody even at the start of the season, nobody expecting them to even be in contention for a New Year's Six Bowl. There's nobody thinking that. And now, again, so I think they're able to just go out, have fun, and let's see what we can do. And I think, Levis has been a big part of that. And I think what he brings to the table there is, a bit of a chip on the shoulder attitude. And I'm going to, prove myself, and I'm going to, prove our program. And I think that's
fit for what they want to do on offense and the way Mark Stoops wants to play football. For sure.
And the way that offense needs to operate in the SEC to have a chance. They're not making the headway they are with a quarterback who's just dropping back and taking 5 or 7 step drops every time back and firing the ball downfield. That's not that's not how Kentucky's going to make headway in that conference.
It's a really impressive formula. I always like when you see a guy go into a place where, look, there's a definitive ceiling, but even maxing out to that is very difficult. Like, I loved watching what Franklin did at Vanderbilt. When he was doing that, because it's like, man, that is somebody who figured out how to max out the ceiling of a really tough place to win. When Paul Johnson went to Georgia Tech and implemented the triple option, like, he got Georgia Tech football to about the peak of where it was going to go. In that area. Kentucky, and it's fun to watch, especially in the SEC, because I like to watch all the fans down there get all up in their feelings that all of a sudden Kentucky football is going down to the swamp and beating the Gators.
We'll take a short break here. Be back to wrap up shop for a Thursday edition on this bye week for the Nittany Lions. You're tuned in to the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show from Quaker Steak and Lube.
Lion Country Kia is offering exceptional deals on your new Kia during Kia's Command the Season event.
We have a nice selection on the 2021 Kia Sportage with various options and prices as low as $26,800, saving you $3,000. Or if you demand big power and towing capacity, slip into one of the 2021 Kia Sorrentos available on our lot, starting at $32,680.
Discover why Kia drivers throughout the area come to Lion Country Kia or visit online at lioncountrykia.com.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent ya.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent ya?
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Here at Bill Pickles Tap Room, we say,
tell him Johnny sent ya.
And remember,
tell him Johnny sent ya.
And we welcome you back into the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. Chris Bucanati, again, kind enough to fill in as he gets ready to watch his Eagles take on the Buccaneers tonight in Thursday night football. Of course, the beloved Steelers will be in action on Sunday night. A couple of primetime matchups for the Pennsylvania teams this week against the Seattle Seahawks.
Where's that game?
I think that one's in Pittsburgh. Am I remembering that right? I'll have to look up to make sure.
I'll tell you what, in Pittsburgh, I like that matchup for the Steelers.
Well, every time, and Tomlin's history has been when the fans start to get on him and that this team is left for dead, right? They do rally. And all too often for Steelers fans' taste, when the Steelers seem to have everything humming along, they come along and lose to the Raiders or some other team that has a ton of losses. It is kind of remarkable the way that has worked. But I do feel like I really wish, stating the obvious, but I was feeling so good when the Colts were up 22-3 there on the Ravens, because I'm like, man, for as bad as this start has been for the Steelers, like, it feels like they're figuring some things out.
Yep.
The schedule is not easy, but I think favorable to getting back in this thing. And again, now you're a game, and you're obviously going to have the opportunity to play Bengals again, the Browns and the Ravens. And, it feels like this thing is manageable. It still is. That get one result there with the Ravens, but it was the way the Ravens won that. And I just think that the confidence now that not that Lamar Jackson, had they lost that, was going to be lacking in confidence, but it feels like they believe something special is happening now again with that within that Ravens organization. And I still think the Steelers are very much in the hunt. I think that division is just going to be fun to watch, much like the Big Ten East. Because I truly, I think the Bengals are, and in part because I saw them beat my Steelers pretty handily, but I think that team, talent-wise, is right there with
all
Cleveland.
All 4 teams look legit.
Yeah,
there's no doubt.
And, for the Steelers, it's going to come down to Big Ben, and can he stay healthy and be productive, and can they, overcome now the loss of Smith-Schuster, and can that defense, be consistently great? Because that it can't be a really good defense. For the Steelers, I'm talking about to get to the playoffs. They need that defense to be great, and then, again, keep figuring things out. I will say the running game was certainly better. I think Najee Harris, I think they're figuring some things out in terms of how they want to use him, and I think he's figuring some things out in terms of timing with that offensive line.
No
and
question.
kind of what you were talking about with the Penn State running backs. Sometimes, again, it comes together differently for different people or groups at different times. But the timing is off. I mean, I'll be really curious to see the film study. But the timing is off, and the vision. There were a couple of cutback opportunities in that Iowa game that they just. Where you could see on TV. And listen, it's different when you're in the heat of the battle, and I get it. And quarterbacks all the time, even the best. You'll go back and look at a film session. It's like, oh my God, I had that guy literally by himself, and I fired even on a play that works. I fired it over here, and we got 15 yards. But my God, that was a touchdown waiting to happen. And the best of them there are plays where it's like, oh my God, I didn't see that. Right? That's why they're constantly looking even during the games. Hey, this guy's getting open over here. Keep an eye on him. We have a favorable matchup over there or whatever. But, it's going to come down, again, health between those 4 teams in the AFC North. And, again, I really don't think there's much separating any of those 4 teams. I think all 4 are capable of making the playoffs, and I don't think there's a guarantee of any. As good as the Ravens looked, and that it was a terrific comeback, even now I still don't think that's that team's guaranteed because again, a couple of injuries,
22-3.
Well, yeah, and a couple of injuries. All 4 teams have some flaws. Probably most in the NFL. Buffalo's to me is as complete a team as there is in the NFL right now,
no doubt.
and has as much depth as I think. Eddie, there's not many spots where, Josh Allen would be the exception, but not many spots where even if they get injured, you're like, oh man, look out, they're screwed now.
Right.
They are too deep at most of those roster spots, like too deep where you feel pretty comfortable and pretty good about the situation, even if an injury occurs. But you're looking at the Steelers. You talk about the good timing for a bye week. If they big if, but if they win this game over Seattle, and it is at Heinz Field, then you get back to 500. You have the bye week, and then you open up at Cleveland coming off of the bye week. Which, again, truthfully, I think if you're the Steelers, that's the opportunity you want. Let's get back. Let's get a little. I don't know if they're looking at it necessarily as revenge for the playoff last year, but more, again, just an opportunity to really get in the thick of the race here in the division. And you look at it after that, it's the Bears. I was trying to remember that they have the Bears and the Lions the next couple of games, so you can theoretically build some good momentum there, and then you get into the meat of the schedule because then you go to the Chargers, to the Bengals, you're home with the Ravens. But
if y'all can't go 2-0 against the Bears and Lions,
yeah. Although I'm telling you, Fields is
that's true.
That dude is a difference maker, and the Steelers have had, like many NFL teams, have had their problems with those dual threat quarterbacks.
So Chicago's offensive line stinks. It's terrible, but they've got good skill position guys.
Yep.
And if you've got a quarterback who can compensate for, shaky pass protection, which Fields can. Look, man, Allen Robinson's really good. Darnell Mooney's really good. Like, they've got some playmakers. Jesse James and Cole Kmet are good tight ends. So, it's really going to be, I think, for Pittsburgh, one of the things that, man, this is the most competitive y'all's division has been since the 80s.
Yeah,
right?
I'm telling you, truly, I get you say it every Sunday regardless, and I guess in theory it's possible that even the Detroit Lions could beat the Chiefs in Kansas City, but that's not actually happening. I really do think any of those teams in any of their venues on a given Sunday, I mean, it's a coin flip. Like, I don't even think it's I just don't think there's much at all separating any of those teams talent-wise, coaching-wise. I mean, there's just not a lot to choose from there in terms of why you would favor one team over another. And again, it's as a fan, it should be fun just to see how it all plays out. And again, the Steelers, I think, have a chance here to get some momentum. If you can win this game Sunday night, and then again, all big ifs, but you come out of that break and win those next three. Now you're at 6-3, presumably at least, right in the mix, if not atop the division. You wouldn't be more than a game out at that point. And then again, you're going to be a team that is experienced, playing with confidence, presumably at that point. And we'll see. We'll see how everything plays out from that
I think
point
that
on.
Seattle game, especially at home, the way Russ Wilson's been playing this year, I think you got to try to grind that down and turn it into a slugfest.
Yep, agreed.
And that's the way Pittsburgh wins that one.
And I think that is the thinking going in for the Steelers is, let's try to control the time of possession. Let's, get some good, long time-consuming drives together.
It's almost like trying to play like Wisconsin or Iowa.
Yep.
Like, if you can – the Steelers do have the ability to borrow a term from James Franklin, to create explosive plays with their receiving core. If you can get up double digits on Seattle, again, at home with Pittsburgh's defense, then they're just not like – I've got a chance to watch them a couple of times this year, and like Russ is great, man, but they don't have like a ton around him.
This is not one of the better Seattle teams since Carroll's been there, which is not to say that they're not good. That's still a very solid team, but this isn't. This team's not going to the Super Bowl. Put it that way. And, I still, as a deranged Steelers fan, see a path there if things can come together. But part of it coming together is that I do think, I don't know that you can truly legitimately say this is a must-win game, but I'm telling you, for the Steelers to get where they want to go, this is as close to a must-win game as you could have in Week 6 of an NFL season. The Steelers have got to get back to 500, get that good feeling in the room going into the bye week. And listen, the record in these primetime games with Tomlin is fantastic. There's a lot of reasons, I think, to be optimistic as a Steelers fan. I tend to be optimistic anyway, so I'm kind of all in that they will take care of business here Sunday night. And again, I think they'll get to 6-3, and then then we'll see what happens. I'm not making wild predictions after that, but I think I really do think it's going to be anybody's game down the stretch, and it's going to come down to a couple of plays here and a couple of plays there for all of those teams in terms of how the season plays out, and who knows who's going to make those plays. Again, injuries will play a role in it for sure. So let's just sit back and enjoy and see how it all plays out. But good luck to your Eagles tonight. Good luck to the Steelers on Sunday. Real quick, I just wanted to going back to James Franklin, and he did again address the Iowa situation, and I think pretty much everybody has weighed in pretty similarly. I have not seen it, and if legitimately, because I feel like that maybe James Franklin and me and Penn State fans, that there is something that we're missing. Because I had somebody who is good friends with an Iowa fan, and they're like, yeah, but there's a history there, not with Penn State, but of Iowa fans, of teams doing this to Iowa. And I'm like, again, doing what? Because I'm still not understanding what the competitive advantage is. And Kirk Ferentz said, our fans aren't stupid. And with all due respect, They are. If they thought that, because this is what I still haven't had anybody explain to me is
Google
what
the
is
2020 Iowa caucus and how that turned out. Then come tell me that.
But what is the competitive advantage? Because presumably you're upset because it wasn't just that they were booing. The image that I can't get out of my mind because the camera panned the stands at the one point, and I get it. It's one fan. I'm not labeling the entire Iowa base, but there was a fan, and it was a college student, and probably hammered. But he's got both middle fingers up, and he's giving the fingers, and I mean he's visibly angry that Penn State has a player who's injured. And presumably you're angry because you think Penn State is trying to get a competitive advantage. And what I'm just trying to get somebody to explain to me is what is, and it's basically what James Franklin was saying is on top of that we don't do it anyway, and it's not something we preach or coach or ever think about. And even if we did, why would we do it with the players we did at the times of the game we did, all of which makes perfect sense. But above and beyond all of that, again, the initial anger by the Iowa fans is for what? I'm just not understanding. What is it that you think Penn State was doing to gain a competitive advantage? Again, the only reason you're not upset if somebody's doing something and it has no effect, right? So presumably you are thinking, no, Penn State's doing this because they're definitely going to get the competitive advantage. And if somebody could just explain to me what you think, and Kirk Ferentz would be the person to do the explaining because he says his fans aren't stupid, which presumably means he understands why they're doing it. And if you could just explain it to me, because what is the advantage that would be gained there by having your players go down? And especially Franklin talked a good bit on the defensive side. And yes, the defense was playing lights out, but they booed when Clifford went down. What is the competitive advantage of an offensive player going down and stopping the game? And again, Penn State was clicking on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And Iowa was not. So it's not a hurry up offense, all the things that have already been talked about, but there has to be somebody somewhere that can explain, well, this is what Iowa thought the competitive advantage. Even if you could just explain, I'm presuming that I'm not going to agree with it, but if you can explain to me what advantage you think Penn State was trying to garner with that, because that's the part that still just I'm not wrapping my head around.
First of all, there's a bunch of people who spend their lives in the middle of a flat state with the sun shining down on them all day. So, look, probably a couple of brain cells killed over the years. They are engaged in this mass delusion, I suspect, because they are overcompensating for a gnawing imposter syndrome. When you are number 2 in the nation and you know damn well that you are a total fraud waiting to be exposed for the second time in 6 years, by the way, in the exact same situation, you look for anything to deflect attention away from the fact that you know what everyone else knows deep down inside, that you're a fake. Because I can think of no other logical explanation. It is certainly far more reasonable than Penn State was taking its all-American defenders off the field to slow down Iowa's 1950s offense. Look, we get it, guys. Understandable, because there's no other explanation for being this angry after a loss. And look, this is the last thing I'm going to say about this. I don't care about idiot Iowa fans. I don't even care about their idiot special teams coach. When the longest tenured head coach in the nation's most venerable conference comes out and before what is essentially a national audience accuses college kids of faking injuries, here's where it really goes off the rails, because the sport of football has just come out of a mini existential crisis of the last 15 years where there was an appreciable drop in player participation at every level. Why? Because mom wasn't letting the boys play youth football, high school football, and that resonates through every other level of the sport.
Yeah.
And there has been all this time, money, and effort been spent off the field, changing rules in the court of public opinion to resuscitate the game of football and get it to a point where the participation levels are back up, right? So we're all, to to borrow a phrase from the coach who I hope is going to help upset Iowa in a couple of weeks, we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. Okay? Let's go Minnesota. I'm a huge Golden Gophers fan. In a couple of weeks, I don't care what they're going to be
Always did like that PJ Fleck.
I don't care what they're going to be ranked in the Big Ten title game. I don't care. The Fraud Bowl.
Yes,
let's go
indeed.
Gophers. So if you're a Penn State player now, and Kirk Ferentz, who's got a lot of credibility banked, just went on national television and accused everyone in our program of faking injuries. And so you think you might be hurt, and you go down and there's millions of people watching at home and 100,000 in the stadium, and you got to make a split-second decision about your own health and welfare. After we've done all this work over all these years to try to get the game to a point where it's sustainable based on 2021 sensibilities, are you going to look me in the eye and tell me that for the rest of the season, every player on Penn State's roster is not going to have Kirk Ferentz's words and everything that's been said about them on the national media, and they had to read in social media and hear from friends and family and the whole bit? You don't think that's going to factor into their decision making, and you don't think that's bad for the game? Somebody's got to hold them accountable and say, okay, Kirk, like, you don't just step up to the podium with the platform that you have, casually accuse 18 to 22-year-old kids of faking injuries, and then just waltz off the stage and not get called to account for it.
And again, I'll let it go after this, but to me, Ferentz at least owes everybody an explanation of, again, he said his fans aren't stupid. They knew what was going on. Then explain what it is that you think is going on and why that would give, because I truly have racked. I mean, I've spent more time thinking about this than any rational human being should, but I really have, because I'm like, listen, there has to be something here that I'm missing in terms of, like, Ferentz, I don't think is throwing that out without believing that there's something to it.
Could I tell? Here's what I think it is.
And if he does, again, what is the advantage? Because you've got to believe that there is an advantage being gained.
Look, I don't think he believes that for a second. Here's what I think. I think it's two things. I think that there is a fraternity of old school, rub some dirt on it type football coaches. And I love those guys. Don't get me wrong. But I think they look at guys like PJ Fleck and James Franklin and think they're totally full of it.
Yeah.
And so they use every opportunity to take a dig at those type of coaches. It's a perception that's out there, and I think they know that the other guys in like the old school kind of Bud Grant style coaching fraternity will quietly pat them on the back for taking a shot at the James Franklins of the world. So I think Kirk felt like he knew he had, again, enough credibility banked and enough people who would be kind of on his side quietly because of what they think of guys like James. He knew he had a free shot. The other thing is, look, there are a ton of people right now in the college football media, right down to jerks like me, saying that Iowa are total frauds, just waiting to be exposed.
Yeah.
So that entire community, that whole program, they are inside the foxhole together. And they have been for a while, because a lot of people have conveniently forgotten the two enormous PR debacles they just went through in the last 24 months, which, by the way, I was shocked that as he is living inside that Crystal Palace, he decided to load up his catapult and launch a boulder our way. Like, that's pretty interesting, right? But I think after it was such a bad look for the way their fans behaved, I think he almost felt obligated to go out there and come to their defense and kind of feel like, look, the news cycle is 7 seconds long. If I'm Kirk Ferentz, if I come out and I take a shot at this guy that I and my peers don't really like or respect anyway, it's going to be a big story for 24 hours, and then Oklahoma's going to cancel all its media availabilities because somebody climbed to the top of a dorm building, and no one's ever going to talk about it again. And the fans who are going to be here after all of it are going to remember that I stuck up for him. I think that's the whole thing. I don't think he believes for a second. I don't even think he bothered to think through a rationale.
I don't know, but the special teams coach, I mean, because I do think there's something, I don't know. Anyways, I mean, I think there's something that they think is going on.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Yeah.
That's what I think was going on Saturday night. And F that team. honestly, oh God, please let one of these jokers left on Iowa's schedule beat them. Because the one thing I will say about Iowa's resume and everything they are saying about that football team, they damn well better not lose a game for the rest of the year, but they sure as a word I'm not going to say on this podcast, even though it's not on television. They sure as heck better not lose to any of the stiffs left on their regular season schedule, or the whole thing, the whole house of cards fantasy they've built up around them comes down on their fat, corn-fed farmer friend heads.
If you are Penn State, though, do you not want,
for the love of Pat Fitzgerald,
do you not want Iowa to go ahead and run the table? I kind of do, because I would love Penn State to be the one to expose. I mean, Penn State might still have that chance. Iowa can lose a game, and Penn State's still going to get a chance to expose them again in the Big Ten championship game. I still think it would be fun for Penn State. I understand what you're saying. I'm just telling you, if Iowa comes in undefeated, conceivably even number one, right at that point, if Georgia loses to Bama or whatever, I mean, listen, it's college sports, anything can happen. I'm telling you, if Penn State is held, Sean Clifford's in there, and Penn State, PJ Mustipher notwithstanding, everybody else is healthy and ready to go. I am here to tell you, with the motivation now provided from all of this and everything else, and even without the motivation, I'm telling you that is a 4-touchdown win for Penn State.
I hear you. And it would be great. It would be great. I'm a petty man, Ironhead.
Oh, I can be petty with the best of them, so I understand where you're coming from. Folks, we hope you have a great Penn State football-less weekend. Goon will be back, and we'll talk to you again on Tuesday. Until then, be good and be safe.